if there's one guy that probably everybody should listen to, it's Adam Scott.
Yeah. He's been out there a while now.
Beautiful golf
swing. For a long time.
Beautiful dude.
Okay.
Gotta throw it out there. But
Okay,
how do you guys think he plays this week?
I think he has.
You guys can't lie. I mean, hey.
Oh, wow.
So he
Not
usually
with
plays
that
pretty
golf swing.
Pretty steady. So
Yeah, I
Nice
mean,
mirror irons.
like I said, great looking golf bag too.
wow.
I bet he plays pickleball, too.
Huh? Don't get me started. Absolutely love pickleball.
Wow, Nicky's got a man crush on Adam Scott.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Welcome back to episode 16 of the Loggerhead Golf Podcast. And this week, we've got the Open Championship. Should be an exciting week. Weather actually looks pretty good for once. Light rain. I think today's high over there, 64 for a practice round. Before we hop into it, apparently nobody from CBS is listening to the podcast because that coverage this weekend was horrendous of the Scottish Open. To not see the last two holes covered at all.
Well, it was tape recorded as well too. But well, first let's clear the air. So this week is the Open Championship. Is it the Open Championship or is it the British Open? What do we call this tournament?
I think most Americans say the British Open.
I know that's what I call it, British
Yeah.
Open. But when did they,
I mean, I'll say, especially this week,
yeah,
it's the British Open.
yeah.
I mean,
If you're
in-
American, it's the British Open.
say it's in England. I mean, it makes
It's over yonder across the pond. It ain't here in our backyard. So it's British Open.
that's fair. I mean, so a lot of things have kind of happened, this past week in the golf world. Obviously, Rory finishing that birdie stretch at the Scottish Open. Good for him. Everyone's now like, why isn't Rory gonna win at Whole Lake? It's like, well, because he hasn't won a big event. And
What I thought was funny, and now obviously I watched the previously recorded coverage. I didn't watch it live.
I saw it on Golf Central pregame.
I thought it was hilarious how the commentators were basically giving Rory no chance to win that golf tournament, right?
I loved it.
They wanted Robert McIntyre, that
they
hometown
wanted-
hero, to win.
Well, he played great. He played a great round of golf. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed watching him play with the energy he had. But when Robert McIntyre birdied 18, they had all but awarded him the tournament, right? And they kept basically said, "Well, Rory's got to do this. Rory's got to do that. He can't, And then he birdied 17 and 18 to win that golf tournament.
Only one player other than Rory birdied 18.
It was Robert McIntyre.
McIntyre. So
But no one birdied 17 and 18.
yeah, well, I guess that's playing to win.
Yeah.
I mean, those shots he hit, especially that 2-iron cut he hit on the
On
last
18
hole
was pretty cool.
was pretty cool.
206.
Yeah.
Yeah,
2-iron.
I mean, like you said, he had a gap in his bag. Chose that 2-iron.
Yep.
Always take more club. But now let's talk about what happened on our side of the pond. Right. So one of those kind of before we dive into British Open, we had a classic PGA Tour always does an opposite field event.
Right.
How do you guys feel about PGA Tour essentially running two events at the same time this past week?
It's kind of a joke in the sense the winner, first-time winner, and he only gets $683,000.
Well, and even worse than that, really, those 300 FedEx Cup points.
Yeah.
Because that's what those guys live by, is getting into the playoffs. And, I mean, 300
Makes
FedEx
or breaks
Cup,
their next year.
exactly. That's 200 points less than what you get for winning any other PGA Tour event. To me, in my opinion, I think these opposite field events are a representation of everything that's wrong with the PGA Tour.
Yep.
And why we're kind of in this situation with the live golf debate versus PGA Tour debate. There's a reason why models like live golf are starting to have success, and obviously, as we've seen with the merger, it's going to have some effect on the PGA Tour.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, it's all but confirmed now that the merger is going through. There's going to be a lot of changes.
But now wasn't, and his name was what, Vincent?
Vincent Norman.
Now, what isn't he traditionally? He plays mainly on the DP World Tour.
No, he qualified. He's a PGA Tour
Okay.
member through the Corn Ferry Tour. Great golfer, played Florida State. He's had some really solid finishes this year. So game's trending, but it's one of those ones where my biggest problem with the opposite field events, it proves that if you're not a top 20 player on the PGA Tour FedEx Cup point list, the PGA Tour does not care about you.
It's not even top. It's like a top 50.
Top 50.
Top 15 of official World Golf Rankings, I should say.
Top 15 official World Golf Rankings. PGA Tour does not care about you. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous for the PGA Tour to go on, and it's a little bit of my hot rant, but to go on their whole spiel about why they're the greatest this past year, why live is bad, why all this other stuff is bad, and then you have these opposite field events to where you don't even reward the players for playing. It's like...
The trophy was kind of a manifestation of that, right?
Oh, I mean, that got me super hot and bothered when, like, you post a picture. It's like Steph Curry won a bigger trophy this weekend for a charity tournament, you know. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, this kid's grinded. Like, the two guys that got into a playoff were ultra deserving. They're great golfers. So if the PGA Tour thinks their name has so much value and is worth so much, then why wasn't that a normal pursed event?
I don't get it.
What we learned with the Senate hearings, they got plenty of money. So, you know, and my biggest thing, it's absolutely ludicrous for them to call the Scottish Open a PGA Tour event.
Yeah, and I don't understand. Like I said, I was supposed to say this week or last week was just a total manifestation of everything that's wrong with the PGA Tour. I don't understand how you can randomly decide, okay, well, we've been having a handful of our PGA Tour players go over to the Scottish Open and play the week before the British Open to get some links practice in. So we're just going to say, we'll call that a PGA Tour event
it's
now.
The thing is, and that you know? I don't get it because it's proving that, and it's kind of where next year, obviously things are going to change now, but next year where they're making it the top 70 guys don't have to play but 16 events, and they're guaranteed in those 16. And if you're outside the top 70, you're never going to get in. But like that's kind of what the Scottish was.
Yeah.
You know, there's a bunch of DP World Tour players that didn't get in that tournament.
That's what I was getting
and had to come over here to Kentucky to play in the Barbasol.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and that's where I'm kind of getting. It's like, well, you know what? If these players wanted to leave to go practice, they're going to make the decision to give up the FedEx Cup
and I think
points.
even
don't hurt the guys that are PGA Tour members that
don't hurt the guys that are playing on DP World Tour every week.
True,
right? Because if you look at how screwed up
guess
that
who's
is,
leading the DP World
that's
Tour?
what I say. Where Race to Dubai is Rory McIlroy, right? But he hasn't played a regular DP World Tour event
since he won in Dubai.
Okay, well, no, but that's a Rolex Series event. That's an elevated event. That's not just a regular DP World Tour event.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because this happens every year.
Like
I mean, you remember when Colin Morikawa did win the Open Championship, which is, you know, gets you Rolex points and things like that. But it's funny, every single year we get to the DP World Tour Championship, and there's some American on the leaderboard that has only played in the two majors and maybe one other event,
see, all four
and
majors
is leading the DP World Tour. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an absolute joke, the monopoly that the PGA Tour has over all the other tours. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, that's what it comes down to.
I think that's what this whole change is about, whether people like it or not. At some point, you know, you can't. You can only be the big boss for so long until it comes crumbling down. Yeah. So I'm actually excited to see what comes out of this Senate hearing. Just, I mean, we talk about it all the time. As I grew up watching, like in the mornings, even though it put me to sleep, I grew up watching European Tour golf because I liked watching all the golf shots. Mm-hmm. In the afternoon, I watch PGA Tour golf.
Best coverage you can watch. This week of golf is going to be the best coverage you can watch of golf. I mean, for sure. And that's the great thing about it. And you're 100% right, Kyle, because my biggest thing is I hate when people are just hypocrites. I mean, the PGA Tour has just been nothing but hypocrites for the past year. You know, so and I know the opposite field events have always been this way. But when you kind of heighten yourself to a certain level and you're saying you're the standard, you're the best, well, okay, pay your rest of your guys.
Right.
You know, don't hurt them for only giving them – God, the PGA Tour gave them that place to play. The PGA Tour could have easily just come out and said, that's the PGA Tour event at the Scottish Open. We're not having an opposite field event.
Right.
So if you want to host the tournament, host a tournament.
Yeah.
You have elevated events and you have everything else. Make sure everything else is the same purse. We know you have the money.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the biggest issue with this. I mean, 683,000. I mean, I'm sure I can look it up, but I'm sure the Korn Ferry Tour winner from this past week made pretty close to that, and yet they're two completely different events, and the Korn Ferry is supposed to be a step down.
Yeah, but I mean, as we're saying, it should be a PGA Tour event. A PGA Tour event should have a minimum purse.
For sure. If they want to throw their such a great name and logo on it.
Right.
But obviously, congrats to Vincent Norman, first time winner on the PGA Tour. I mean, does that get him in Augusta? I mean, I guess not, right?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
especially with the watered down.
I think that
I was like, did he at least
think that
crack
it,
the top
I think
50
that
in
it still
FedEx Cup
does.
point?
The only PGA Tour wins that don't guarantee exemption at the Masters, I believe, are the fall season.
Or like the
events.
Puerto Rico and things like that.
I think the Hero World Challenge too, right? Since that's
Right.
Tiger's hosted event.
Yeah,
I'll say that's not a PGA Tour sanctioned event.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yet somehow gets world ranking points, but that's another that's another conversation for another day. But
Yeah, definitely some questions to be, I think, asked there of the PGA Tour on their also ran events. Basically, is what they made that.
yeah,
Yeah,
Well, on a more positive note,
I was gonna say. I mean, now we get into one of the best weeks in golf.
session there. Yeah,
I mean, we had to talk about it though because a
lot happened.
That
Well, I mean-
picture of his trophy was terrible.
So, and sorry to beat a dead horse, but who's to say they couldn't take? And we even kind of mentioned this. So take the Corn Ferry Tour guys and give them exemptions into that,
Make it a major.
and make it like a Corn Ferry Tour major. And if you're a Corn Ferry regular, you win that event. Maybe you get exemptions onto the PGA Tour.
If you're
Like,
not-
there's a way to feed your players
If you're
into
not,
the PGA Tour.
if you're not the Justin Thomases, the Rorys, those guys, the PGA
It's
Tour
hard to get up
does
there.
not care about
No.
you at all. I mean, it's just that simple. But
All right. Anyway,
rant over. Happiness now. Open Championship. What are you guys looking forward to this week? The British Open. Sorry.
I think it's going to be cool to hear what Rahm has to say.
Yeah.
Because this venue hosted Seve's last Open Championship ever. So obviously with Rahm leading birdie average this season on the PGA Tour, he's a favorite going into it. But since he's someone who looked up to Seve, and pretty much every time he wins, he talks about Seve, I think it's going to be
2001.
2006.
2006.
So I think it's going to be a really special week for him, no matter what happens, just with that Spaniard history there.
yeah, for sure. They definitely stick together. Who are some of our picks for this week? Who we like?
Yeah, let's go through our picks.
Well, if he can putt, Scotty Scheffler. I got some stats this morning. He's first this season in all events in scoring average, first in strokes gained average, first in approach to green, somehow first in strokes gained putting, first in greens and regulations.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to say Scheffler.
So that's your big pick.
I would say that's my big pick if the putter's working. We'll know early on if he's got 4 putters out there or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at 2014, which we all know, guy that's in top form, last winter here, he's obviously the favorite, Rory.
Second place was Ricky Fowler.
Yes,
Well, I'm going to
correct.
get to that here in just a second.
I was going to say, Kyle, I'm going to make you proud. I think Ricky has a strong showing this week.
Yeah.
I think it's a ball striker's golf course.
Right.
So I personally think the guy that hits the most greens, hits it closest to the hole is going to win.
Yeah.
If you stay out of the bunkers, you're going to be fine on this golf course. It's very benign. I mean, 17 under won it in 2014. Now, remember, all the players think that technology makes it a lot easier now. So, 20 under should win it. But it's going to be low, I think, because the conditions are going to be fantastic.
Yeah. I say we'll get into a little bit, but looking at the weather forecast and from what some of the players have been saying, the golf course is playing a little softer right now than what it has in 2006 and
Say
2014.
green.
So it's pretty green, and with rain in the forecast for the weekend, it'll probably stay a little softer. So scores could be low.
I would say, though, my picks I have written down. Ricky's the only American I'm going to put in my top 4. I think Matt Fitzpatrick is going to be up there. I love what Cam Smith said when he turned the trophy in. I've been telling my buddies, you're only without it for a week. So, I mean, that's champions mentality.
Cam Smith is my pick. I think he defends
and
his
then I would
championship.
say my dark horse, but he hasn't been really a dark horse, but it's just because he hasn't pulled through in a major, Victor Hovland.
Yeah.
I've got a weird one nobody's talking about, and it all depends on his attitude, but Bryson. I've got him as my dark horse pick.
Yeah.
I feel like he's been kind of hidden this year, but the last
been
2
playing
events
well.
he's played in, I think with the change that his body, he's back into a
Well, he has a
healthy
new swing
form.
coach, too.
He's got the equipment dialed in for the first time in it seems like 2 years, and so that's my dark horse.
Yeah.
I watched a video. He's made some swing changes, like some. I mean, you can tell he's never afraid of
So
it.
he's always working on
He's
something.
always working, but his swing looks completely different.
Yeah, so for me, Cam Smith's my pick. I think he defends his title. And when I was looking at trying to decide on picks, the question I asked myself was, which one of the jailbreakers is going to win this week?
I think who was it that put it?
So that was what led me to think maybe Ricky Fowler has a good week. He played well there in 2014, finished runner up to Rory. He's a good ball striker traditionally, and he's putting with the jailbreak. So I think that's 3 notches in his corner.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, the easiest thing to look at is you look at the leaderboard from 2014. Now it's a completely different golf course now. They've changed 15 green, the par 3 completely.
17 green. Is a new hole.
Yeah, they've lengthened the golf course a ton.
Added
So
in
like
a lot of new
so like a
bunkers.
lot of the players have said this week, because like Rory and Tiger, you remember, like it was almost like that year also at Carnoustie where they were hitting irons off every tee.
Yeah.
This year it's gonna be completely different. They have to hit driver. It's so long and so soft. So I
Well,
think
like the year when Tiger won there in 2006, the golf course was so dry that when he was hitting irons off the tees, and when it landed, dust was flying up off the ground, right? And I don't think
we're going to see that. So you're going to see a lot of players, especially in the holes that are into the wind, they're going to have to hit driver. So like I'm looking at, I mean, and you look at the leaderboard, like I was saying earlier, though, like in 2014, all the best players in the world essentially finished in the top 20. The cream's going to rise to the top.
Yeah.
So it's not far fetched to say Scotty Scheffler is always going to have a chance.
He'll most likely be up on that leaderboard.
I wouldn't be
Regardless of
surprised
how
to
he
see
puts.
Colin Morikawa up there. He always plays well.
I would be surprised to see Colin.
Yeah, he's been folding like a lawn chair lately.
Yeah.
Jeez, Kyle.
Yeah, well, I mean,
He just hasn't been playing good.
I think, that's one thing about social media that's cool is we kind of get a deeper look at equipment changes. And even though Colin's using the same head, it's kind of weird that every event this year so far, he's either changed the swing weight or the length of his putter. And it's fluctuated from 33 1/4 all the way up to 34 3/4.
I'll say now we're getting
searching.
I'll say we're getting into our style of talk here.
Yeah.
Name a single tailor-made golfer that has stuck with the Stealth 2. Like
Rory.
that. He's tweaking every week.
But I mean, he won with it last week.
No, I'm saying but every single one of them is doing something crazy with their driver.
Yeah, they're all searching for something.
Yeah.
I mean, hot take. I don't think that driver's good, but
Fleetwood actually said in his press conference yesterday he planned on utilizing his burner mini more this week than his actual driver, just to try to keep it under the wind and let it chase a
I
little.
think that's a golf club that'll be good for link style golf.
And obviously Bryson is also playing the burner mini. So I think the equipment side of things this week will be pretty interesting given the conditions.
say it all the time. Law 2 irons.
Yeah. Now I think it's important to also mention, and we always kind of hear this story develop during the Open Championship, the good side of the draw versus the bad side of the draw, right? So the tee times on Thursday and Friday, do we think they'll have any impact on this championship? You don't think so?
The weather's perfect, 65 degrees, and
I mean, there's a chance
no
of rain
wind.
Friday morning though.
Rain's rain. If it's not blowing, I mean that's
Well, if we're being technical about the British Open, there's no such thing as a tee time. There's games.
yeah.
Well, okay. But what's different about how they do the games at an Open Championship or British Open versus how we traditionally see the others?
Very benign pairings this week, though. I would say,
Well, I mean, what I'm getting at here is that the major difference is typically we see 1st and 10th tee starts at most golf tournaments, right? On PGA Tour or other majors. But Open Championships or link style golf courses, does number 9 return back to the clubhouse?
No.
So they can't necessarily start on number 10. So it's a straight tee.
Mm-hmm.
So you got tee times running from like 6:30 a.m. until like 4 p.m. So it's a really long spread of tee times. That's why there's always kind of that bad side of the draw and good side of the draw.
I was gonna say. I mean, obviously, if the weather can always change.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
we know
forecast,
we
it
are
doesn't
not
look too
weathermen.
bad,
I mean, you guys know my least favorite question as a golf professional. A pro, what does your radar say? It's like, well, it doesn't say anything. But I don't see from what we're looking at now, there's going to be that big discrepancy between waves, morning and afternoon. Now, if I'm a player, I want to be the first on that golf course. Like I want to get out there Thursday morning because it's usually going to be the softest. It's going to be the week.
I would want to get out early on Thursday.
Early on Thursday. But we look at the tee times. A lot of the big names are deep in the afternoon on Thursday.
Getting them Primetime TV coverage.
I mean, yeah, the only pairing that's like actually a pretty crazy pairing is the
Rory, Rahm,
Yeah.
and Justin Rose.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I mean, everything else but that's also kind of like the Open Championship. There's so many guys that you typically don't see, especially here in the States. So it's like a lot of people in the States might not know their name, but you're going to see a lot of names on the leaderboard this week that you haven't seen before, and they're really good golfers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've been over there doing it for a while. I mean, cool little sub. See Matt Fitzpatrick's brother
Qualified. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's another guy I wouldn't be surprised if somehow, some way he makes the cut and throws a splash in.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen, but it would be pretty freaking sick to see John Daly make the cut.
That would be actually hilarious.
It's funny. When I was rolling through the pairings and then they showed John Daly's, I was like, wow, he hasn't withdrawn yet. And we're already on Tuesday. That's a good sign.
He's going to be out there with his loudmouth golf pants on, probably Arkansas, maybe the USA ones, ripping a cig and a Diet Coke Crown Royal and just having a ball.
He does love him some USA, but he typically likes to throw in, some British style pants. I wouldn't be surprised if he has the.
He can play to the crowd if he wants to.
I wouldn't be surprised if he throws a couple pairs of pants in that have the British flag on them.
Yeah.
But one thing about the golf course, one thing that drives me nuts about golf tournaments is when they manufacture internal OB. So did you guys see on 18, right side of 18, they painted a white line less than like 12 yards from the fairway and call it an internal OB.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked to Caleb about it. He's like, oh, a lot of the courses do it. And I was like, yeah, but they're actual structures. Like they're part of the golf course. So you can tell that the RNA is probably thinking, hey, this tournament might go deep, right? So it's like we got to toughen this hole somehow.
I'm just trying to picture 18 in my mind. 18, does it turn a little bit to the right?
A little bit, yeah.
So, I mean, could it theoretically, what hole is it, number one that's over there beside 18?
Mm-hmm. But it's far over there. I mean, it's fescue everywhere.
I'm going to say, that's what I didn't think they were really close. I was like, they must be thinking that maybe there's some kind of strategy advantage to go just hit it up one fairway or something.
I mean.
But I remember watching it in 14, the fairways aren't even really close together. So.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's one of those things that's like, if the golf course didn't put it there by design,
right,
you probably shouldn't put it there yourself. Now, if they're going to try to say, well, yeah, you're right, you can go over, it's like, well, you guys already lengthened the golf course, so it should protect that. I mean, if 2 or 3 players go down another hole, that doesn't make a big enough difference that you need to protect it. Now, if 100 of the players out of the 170 are doing it.
Yeah, so if everyone's doing it, then obviously there's something wrong with
no, but that's like what a lot of the guys are saying. What they're going to end up doing on 18 is send it into the stands, then you get free relief, and then go from there.
Right. How do we think, because the winds are kind of called for to switch a little bit during the week, how do we think we might see scores be affected by the switching winds?
Well,
and what will happen is the back nine will switch to being into the wind for most of the back nine.
Goes back to that ball striking comment. Mm-hmm. The guys that are really good at flighting the golf ball, kind of like the comment I made. I'm not saying Rory, but Rory at 2-iron from 206, which on a normal day for him is a 295, 300-yard golf club. Mm-hmm. So I think like your Hovland, your John Rahm, Taylor Gooch. I mean, all these guys that are constantly on normal days manipulating ball flight. I think you'll see them kind of like get a little bit of advantage. If you talk about like strokes gain, like make a strokes gain to hitting shots into the wind, I think you're going to see an abundance of players that are going to catch a lot of people off guard, kind of get a couple strokes back because it is going to be challenging.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not sugarcoat. I mean, Rory is one of the best ball strikers in the world. So, I mean, it's not surprising
and
to see him
proved that on that closing stretch on Scottish Open.
He's proved. I mean, that's if for those of you that don't realize, the difference between the best golfers in the world and even really good players is being able to grab a 2-iron from 200 yards and hit a low cut.
Play a golf shot.
Yeah, play a golf shot. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, what it comes down to with Rory in majors, just like what he did at the last major, is he going to play aggressive like he did on 17 and 18 of the Scottish Open, or is he going to do what he does every week where he lays down, hits it to 60 feet, and 2 putts and, goes on. So, like, that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's the one thing that I kind of noticed with Rory. His ball striking is always there. Sometimes in these big tournaments, he plays too conservative.
Well, he proved that last year at the British Open.
Yeah.
Because he hit every green, didn't he?
He hit every single green but one, but he was right on the fringe short of it. So,
but he didn't win.
Didn't win. Got boat raced. Didn't even finish second.
Yeah.
That's one thing that bothers me about last year is that they were like, everyone forgets Cam Young finished second.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I think it would be, I would say if the wind switch and that back nine plays into the wind, a hole to watch will be that new number 17, par 3. It's only about 150, 160 yards, but it's a very small
Looks
target.
terrifying.
It's a very, I was going to say, that's always kind of to me the awkward yardage. But it's a very small green, lots of runoff slopes on front, left, and right, and all of those funnel
if that's
into a very
the
deep
wind, you might see some
bunker.
7-iron, 6-irons.
Well, and that you might see that ball hitting just on the edge of the green, rolling off and rolling down in one of those deep pot bunkers. And some point during the week, we're going to see a highlight, or maybe a low light, you call it, where somebody's hit it in one of those pot bunkers on that hole in 17. They hit it out, but don't get it on the green, and it rolls back down that slope, back into the bunker. They do that 2 or 3, 4 times.
Postage stamp.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's but I mean, who was on, someone did a walkthrough on that hole, and they like showed a ball perfectly in the middle of that green. Mm-hmm. You're going to have less than 25 feet to matter whatever pin. Right. So it's like those players are looking at one spot.
Correct. I want to see what happens when they miss that spot, though.
I'm just disappointed we won't see Sergio in the bunker. If that were to roll back, freaking out, slamming the.
Oh yeah,
I mean, so
that would be hilarious.
That would have been fun.
But I think that's going to happen to someone at some point this week on that hole. But I always find it, to me, interesting with probably my favorite thing about watching the British Open. Obviously, it's a different style of golf, different style of golf courses, and different in conditions as well too. I always found it cool to see where they're playing a golf course and the prevailing wind is going one direction, and there's bunkers or features of the golf course that are just nowhere near in play. They're flying it over top of those things, and then the wind switches, and all of a sudden they can't reach those bunkers now, and like the strategy of the golf holes change completely when that happens. So it's always kind of cool to see that and how the golfers adapt to those changes.
Yeah, we kind of saw a glimpse of it last week. I mean, you had in the same round of golf, the same player that hit pitching wedge from 210, like 210-yard pitching wedge, not juiced or anything. A couple holes later on a short par 4 hit driver 3-wood and didn't make it to the green.
Right.
So pitching wedge from 206 and then driver 3-wood on a 420-yard par 4, and they came up about 20 yards short.
Yeah.
So I'm genuinely excited for this tournament.
The final round of that Scottish Open was fun to watch because of how windy it was and how much it changed the conditions.
Links,
yeah,
right? It's classic links golf.
It's by far my favorite style of golf to watch, and I also like enjoy, especially when we have U.S. Opens that play relatively.
Me. I didn't think you would really like link style golf. You don't like the ball on the ground. You want to throw everything up in the air, Nikki.
I like the visual.
Okay,
I can still throw it in the air. I mean, don't
put a kite on it, let it fly.
Are you kidding me? I'll say I don't need a driver. I don't need a lob wedge. I just like to use them.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said wedge, and that's one thing I've found. And I guess for some players it kind of makes sense, but a lot of players are putting old wedges in the bag for this week. So I think they might be scared of spin.
Well, the greens are slow.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the last kind of thing I was going to hit on is green speeds. How do we think that? Because they always have to have the green speeds for these tournaments a little bit slower. They even kind of mentioned last week.
Well, that's one thing. Rory said he was like the greens are insanely slow.
Yeah,
but like his putt on 18 finally had a downhill putt, so he didn't have to worry about getting to the hole.
It was downhill and downwind.
Yeah, they always have to play. So if it's super windy, they're gonna have to really slow the greens down. I mean, for those of you that understand what a stemp reading is, now if you ask any superintendents, their nemesis, they hate the word stemp. But I mean, you're probably seeing these roll at a 10, maybe on the fast side. So yeah, I don't expect them to be baked out super fast by any means.
No,
that's not the style.
The golf course is green open. Like it is. I always kind of find it curious too, is or how they always talk about the American golfers, PGA Tour players used to playing on so much faster greens that they struggle putting at the Open Championship. But yet, how much success has Americans had
Yeah.
at the British Open? I mean,
From my standpoint, as a
as I
putting,
say, more British Open champions are American than any other nationality,
yeah.
I believe, right? So,
well, I think all of us are kind of the
Fact
same way.
checkers go after Caleb.
I mean, just check it out. But I know Americans have won more Open championships, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, realistically, in the last 10 years, I don't think maybe one person has won it that was an American.
Cam Smith.
Yeah,
Well, and you had Henrik Stenson.
Yeah, I mean, there's been
Cam Smith's Australian,
Yeah.
but
he's not
was gonna
American.
say,
you said
Yeah.
okay. Hey, whoa.
but as far as the greens go, I think
I
one
was
thing that's
talking about Europeans. but-
interesting is, I mean, you guys are semi-aggressive too, but if you have slower greens, take some of the breakout and just hit a little firmer.
Send it.
I don't think that slow greens is a big topic for putting, because if you're the best player in the world and
You
you
should
know
be able to adjust.
and well, that too, but if you know you can just hit a little firmer, take some of the breakout,
Yeah.
that's like a field day for you. I mean,
Exactly.
that is like taking all the work out of it. But when the green's rolling 14 and if you sniff it or barely touch the golf ball and you can't control it, that's when it gets a little complicated.
Yeah, which is why I think we see scores as low as we do in the British Open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the
I mean,
scores are traditionally
and that's the
fairly
thing.
low.
It's in these tournaments, you typically see the 2 to 4 guys go stupid deep,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the field kind of falls back. That's because they're not hitting it as well.
Yeah.
But the guys that are hitting it well at these courses, I mean, they're gonna go deep.
Yeah.
That's my pet peeve, though, Kyle. You brought up a good point. My pet peeve in tournaments is when people complain about green speed. They're like, oh, they're too fast. Oh, they're too slow. Well, one, if you're putting on super fast greens, it should be the easiest because all you got to do is get the ball started on that. If you're putting on really slow greens, it should be easier because you don't have to read as much break and you know you have to hit it. So
fast greens are easier and slow greens are easier. So medium speed is where we've got to watch
I'm not
out.
going to lie. That's 100%. But no, I'm just saying, like, you are notorious for complaining about green speeds.
Well, no,
you
you
are
gotta-
notorious.
I will
for it.
complain, but that's more of me deflecting. I realize that it's not the green's fault, it's me. But in the moment, I don't want to accept that blame for that.
No, of course
So
not.
I've deflected.
mean-
But a lot of golfers do that.
I was
No,
going to say,
for
you mean
sure.
a golfer doesn't want to accept the
Right.
outcome of
Now
what
that
we
being
do?
said, if there's one thing that we know, especially here in Coastal Carolina, is I can't stand grainy greens. I mean, that's what drives me up a wall. But not every place is perfect. You know, it doesn't matter where I put. I'm a good putter. So
Okay.
isn't that what Kyle? Shouldn't everyone say that?
Yep.
I mean, I just agreed with you. I just said okay.
Now, real quick, before we close out the Open, what do you guys think about Adam Scott's comments about the whole golf ball debacle?
Well, I think he just kind of he hit on what we were saying, that it's not the golf ball that's making the game easier and longer. It's that the fact that there's really no penalty for mishitting a driver now.
Yep. I don't know who's been saying it the whole time.
Yeah, I was gonna say he basically said what we
Yeah,
said,
well-
and what podcast was that, 3 or 4? But basically reiterated what we had said, but he said it in a different way, probably a little bit more eloquent way. But
I think what's been kind of nice about just Adam Scott in general over the last couple months, because he's a level-headed person. So he thinks about every answer he's given the media. I think at this point, and I think with that interview, it really showed that he's just tired of the politics being involved in golf.
Right.
So he's not afraid to be a little bit abrasive now and just tell it like it is.
yeah,
So that's
And
been
let's-
kind of cool to see.
And let's not forget, I mean, this is a perfect week to kind of mention it too, since it is the British Open. Traditionally, well, I say traditionally, this was back in the 60s and the 70s, they had what was called the Euro ball. It's a smaller ball than the American ball because the R&A had different set of rules for their golf ball than what the USGA did. So when all the Americans went over and played the British Open, they played with the European ball because it was smaller. Now, what does a smaller golf ball do?
Curve more.
No, well, it might curve a little more, but it's going to go further, right? So we were playing with golf balls that were going comparatively longer
Than the
right?
modern ball, yeah.
Then. So they had a golf ball that would allow them to hit it further. And now we're talking about a golf ball we want to hit shorter. So I just think it's kind of funny how the USGA is taking this big flip of, as opposed to let's find ways to hit the ball, make the ball go further, do this, let's make it go shorter. It's kind of a complete 180 on
and I think the
technology.
And this is why, because the coolest thing at the Scottish Open, a lot of the players were hitting that persimmon driver. I mean, Rory McIlroy still hit that persimmon driver and the old ball 285 yards.
Yeah.
His real driver only went 325. Now,
that's a big difference, but
not
as much as
based
you
on
would
the
think.
technology difference, it's not that big.
It's about a yard a year.
Yeah. So, Jesus. Okay. No, but like I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know what? Like that's honestly not all that different.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's where it's like, okay, then maybe what we should do is go back to making driver. Like if we have a tour driver, it's 440 cc's.
I think that's still too big.
Oh, well,
400.
Sure. You know, why not? 398.
360.
Yeah, but I think if there's one guy that probably everybody should listen to, it's Adam Scott.
Yeah. He's been out there a while now.
Beautiful
He's been
golf
doing it
swing.
for a long time.
Beautiful dude.
Okay.
Gotta throw it out there. But
Okay,
how do you guys think he plays this week?
I think he has.
You guys can't lie. I mean, hey,
Wow.
He's going to have a typical Adam Scott week. He'll hit the ball well, make some putts here and there, and he'll be top 25.
does a long putter serve well on slow greens?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm going to go opposite direction. I think I'm calling top 15. I really think he's finally in a good enough form to where he's had maybe one bad tournament that I can think of where
He's
Sunday,
been playing well.
He's been really consistent. So I think for him, it's honestly the Achilles heel this year has not been the putter.
Yeah.
It's been the driver.
Yeah, he's been putting
I
well.
mean, his consistency with the driver off the tee box has been atrocious. And we saw that at the U.S. Open when he was in contention for a little bit as he was making every putt, but he couldn't get a driver to stay in the fairway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go top 15 for Adam Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever count Adam Scott out.
Nah.
Not
So
with
he
that-
usually
not with
plays
that
pretty
golf swing.
steadily. Pretty steady. So
Yeah, I
Next
mean,
mirror irons.
like I said, great looking golf bag too.
wow.
I bet he plays pickleball too.
Huh? Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Absolutely love pickleball. All right, let's end this because it's getting out of hand.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for watching and listening. Please subscribe, turn on your push bell notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.